Hey everybody, so a few months ago, I made a tweet about the 2006 Zack Snyder film 300, and I'll read it out loud now. Dude, I don't want to be dramatic, but I watched 300 last night, and I can't get over the fact that a straight-up Nazi propaganda film was simply released, and everyone watched it and liked it, and I did too. I wrote more in a thread that you can read, but you get the point. To be honest, I didn't really think much of the tweet. The take that 300 has some fash themes is pretty mainstream, to the point that I felt like the main thing I was communicating was that I watched 300 again, and I liked it, even as it had politics I didn't really notice when I saw it as a kid. But, you know, the internet got pretty mad at me. The tweet got like 900 quote tweets, generated a lot of anger among Zack Snyder fans. And as a result, I have at my disposal just a shitload of arguments as to why I'm dumb and why I'm wrong about 300, why the movie's politics are actually based as hell. And today, lucky you, we're going to be looking at all of those arguments. Well, all the even vaguely interesting ones, at least. So, why am I doing this? What could possibly be the upshot of reading a bunch of 300 tweets from people who love 300 and hate me? Well, I have two reasons. First, it's funny. I was having kind of a lazy month, thought it was a funny thing to do, and wanted to do it. That's the first reason. Second, I don't know. The more of this project that I wrote, the more value I ended up finding in it. You know, it's easy to dismiss angry Twitter people, but at the end of the day, the replies to my tweet are real film critiques. They are, at base, a lot of very passionate people who have strong opinions about a movie. And to some extent, I feel like my job is caring about that. Caring about the shape of public media discourse. So, I don't know. Let's get into it. Why not? So, this argument seems like the best way to begin. Is everything you dislike automatically a fascist Nazi propaganda for you, obnoxious breadtuber? So, to start off, this person obviously just doesn't know who I am and is lumping me in with whatever identity they can use to make me seem annoying. I don't roll around all day every day saying everything I don't like is Nazi shit. Watch any of my videos and you'll see that they're frankly epic. But leaving aside any personal grudge I have against this kind of tweet, I find it interesting and honestly do kind of empathize with where it's coming from. There aren't as many words with as much complexity, as much baggage as the word Nazi or fascist. Fascism is at once a historical moment of the mid-20th century, a political ideology and theory, an insult, an accusation, the stock villain in action movies of the 80s. And because of all that, it can feel overused, vague, unuseful, the sort of thing people throw at whatever politics they just don't like. But when I said that 300 communicates fascist politics, I meant it, and I meant something really specific. So before anything else, let me draw you a general, messy sketch of the ways that 300 feels like Nazi shit to me. 1. The film describes a crisis of civic structure and leadership. Throughout the movie, the Spartan Senate, faced with the threat of Persian invasion, is indecisive, greedy, and bought off by Persian interests.
Persians will not stop until the only shelter we will find is rubble and chaos.
This chamber needs no history lesson, my queen.
Traditional, vaguely democratic civic structures are here unable and unwilling to stand for what is right and for what the people want.
My good king, the oracle has spoken.
The ephors have spoken. There must be no march.
It is the law, my lord.
And the solution to this problem is not some rise of real democracy, an uplifting of the everyman. No, it's a strongman military politician who acts unilaterally. Leonidas illegally goes to war, risks the life of every person of Sparta in the name of its defense.
I will erase even the memory of Sparta from the histories.
And in doing so, he embodies the will of the people. But, and this is important, no such will is actually ascertained. He and his military cohort represent the state because in a very real sense, they are the state, the part of it that matters anyway. 2. The film is not merely about the formation of a military culture, however. It is about the values that this culture comes to represent, the things that our 300 men are fighting against. To put it plainly, Leonidas represents a conservative, nationalist order that rejects impurity, degeneracy, and the other. 300 hates anything that could be conceived of as sexually deviant or gay. Xerxes and his flamboyant, pierced body, the homosexual and depraved acts he allows under his regime. The Athenian boy lovers.
The Athenians have already turned you down. And if those philosophers and boy lovers...
300 hates inbreeding and genetic weakness. The Spartan ephors are not just greedy, but also deformed, inbred freaks.
Kings climb down is harder. Pompous inbred swine. Worthless, diseased, rotten, corrupt.
Ephialtes, the hunchback, is a betrayer, too weak for the Spartans, but ultimately accepted by Xerxes and the Persians.
Unlike the cruel Leonidas, who demanded that you stand, I require only that you kneel.
And these two things, sexual degeneracy and genetic impurity, are then connected with the thing that this movie loves more than anything else in this world, sexual assault. Sexual assault is the price that Theron, a Spartan senator corrupted by Persian interests, asks of Leonidas' wife, Gorgo. It is, by implication, what Ephialtes is promised for his betrayal of Sparta. It is what the ephors do to an 18-year-old girl.
The ephors choose only the most beautiful Spartan girls.
Throughout the film, we come to understand one clear idea, that if the Spartan state, as embodied by its strong men, does not succeed in its mission against invaders and against its own decay and greed and spiritual weakness, they will be ruined. They will not just be slaves to the Persians, but also forced to accept a degenerate, corrupting social project. Their powerful genes will literally be fucked away. 3. But perhaps most important to 300's fascism, it is a film about the mythic origin of the West. In the end, the man recounting the story, Delios, tells us that this is in some sense the point at which civilization begins, the point when mysticism and tyranny and the Oriental horde is destroyed by an emerging, unified Western spirit. And we, the audience of the movie, now possess that spirit. We are the ones tasked with keeping it alive.
We rescue a world from mysticism and tyranny, and usher in a future brighter than anything we can imagine.
And with him, we can return to the beginning of everything good, the world that our modern, weak, sinful, impure society has denied us, but which we can still fight for.
In all the countless centuries yet to be, may all our voices whisper to you from the ageless stones. Go tell the Spartans, passerby.
I'll expand all of these points a bit more toward the end of this video, try to bring a little history into the equation. But for now, I think that should suffice. At the very least, it's what I was talking about when I made my tweet, and I think it's a reasonable and specific case. No, I don't think everything is fascist. Just some things. Just a few things. Okay, let's talk about a tweet that expresses a pretty important idea in 300 discourse. I can't wait to hear this guy's equally stunningly original takes on Starship Troopers and RoboCop. So the point here is clear, right? This idiot doesn't understand that much like Starship Troopers, 300 is a work of satire and critique. It is not fascist, it is making fun of fascism.
I'm doing my part too.
I want to make it clear up top that this is by far the best way to disagree with my point about 300. It acknowledges the very obvious fascistic elements of the film and tries to interpret them in an interesting, clever way. What's more, satire is an ambiguous word. If you truly believe that 300 is satire, I don't think I have a perfect objective way of proving you wrong, and I don't think you're stupid. What I do think is that you're producing an ungrounded, extraordinarily defensive reading of this movie, and that for me, it just doesn't make any sense. So let's look at every tweet argument I've seen in favor of this position. Argument 1. You're told straight up that all of it is a fictionalized history from an unreliable narrator. These room temperature IQ takes are exhausting. Give it a rest, LMAO. Why does every person who disagrees with me about this have to do so in the most sneering, patronizing way possible? It's truly wild even imagining someone choosing to write like this. Give it a rest, LMAO. Like you're the little policeman come to rob me of my 300 opinions. Anyway, the point here is that 300 is told from the Spartan perspective. It's told by Delios, a half-blind soldier, and so we could make the claim that the story is calling on us to question its stated beliefs. Sure, it looks like fascistic military propaganda, but it's being produced by and for the military. It's biased toward bad ideas, and with Delios, it's making us aware of that bias. So I don't buy this argument. Yes, 300 takes the form of a myth, a storyteller who may not be sticking to the facts 100%, but that doesn't just innately mean we're supposed to understand its events as bad. In fact, I'd argue the opposite. Because the film positions itself as a legend, we come to understand Leonidas not as a man, but as a god, someone who demonstrates virtue and heroism against impossible odds.
Remember us. As simple an order as a king can give. Remember why we died.
That's how it feels when you're actually watching the movie. Powerful, inspirational, and epic, not ironic in the least. At any rate, there's no way this unreliable narrator claim is enough on its own to justify that the film is satire, because something in the story itself would have to suggest this kind of critique for it to make any sense at all. So let's look at argument 2. Leonidas' decision to reject the deformed man is instrumental to his defeat. It was incredibly costly to him. If anything, the film is demonstrating a crucial flaw in both Leonidas as a character and Spartan society as a whole. Are you, like, stupid or something? Every time they have to finish the tweet by fucking coming after me. I'm just an ordinary man. I'm not... leave me alone. No, I'm not stupid, and I'm about to demonstrate that by fucking owning you at 300. Anyway, what's going on here? What's the argument? Well, the deformed man the OP is talking about is Ephialtes, a hunchback. Toward the beginning of the movie, he wants to be a soldier, but Leonidas tells him he can't because he isn't able to lift his shield up.
I am sorry, my friend. But not all of us were made to be soldiers.
But
If you want to help in a Spartan victory, clear the battlefield of the dead, tend the wounded, bring them water. But as for the fight itself, I cannot use you.
And Ephialtes goes on to betray Sparta to Xerxes. This tweet is arguing that the film is here critiquing Leo and the eugenicist, ableist ideology of the Spartans. He rejects someone because they're deformed, and he loses his life and his army because of it. So, his actions are therefore framed as bad by the movie. So, I think this point is really just extremely not compelling, and that's for 2 reasons. One, it's a basic misreading of this text, because Leonidas doesn't actually act bad or in an ableist way in this scene. It's not wrong to tell someone that they can't perform a specific task because of their physical disability. It happens. Leonidas doesn't hate Ephialtes. He doesn't disrespect him because he's disabled. If he had, this tweet might have a point. But no, he pretty much shows him respect, tells him to work as an on-field medic, acts normal. See, this arc isn't about the badness of ableism, but about the corrupting influence of weakness and pride. Ephialtes is so wrapped up in his ego that he will not tolerate the reality of his own disability. And for that reason, he goes to Xerxes, a man who accepts all manner of degeneracy and inbreeding so long as you submit yourself entirely to him. In other words, the narrative doesn't critique Leonidas, it actually gives him a totally plausible justification to throw a disabled man out of his army and then shows us the bitter cowardice of that disabled reject. Not a great critique of ableism, in my opinion. 2, and maybe more importantly, this tweet seems to suggest that Leonidas loses, that we're supposed to see the end of the movie as some kind of defeat for him. Which, no, I don't agree with that at all. Leonidas is a martyr. He knows from the very beginning that there's a good chance he and his 300 men will die. And when he realizes that he's going to lose the battle at the end of the movie, he willingly sacrifices himself for the glory of Sparta. This is an act of heroism and sacrifice, plain and simple, one that inspires the masses to fight for the Greek cause. Like, are the Gospels a critique of Jesus because he gets crucified? Should he not have been the Son of God? Is it a satire of God? Get real. Argument 3. The Spartans in the movie berate the Athenians as boy lovers, and yet they're the ones running around naked with other men, almost like they're hypocrites. Okay, so this point is saying that 300 is trying to reveal Spartan society as hypocritical and bad because they say they dislike the boy lovers of Athens, but they run around half naked with other guys. So I kind of like this point, honestly. I think it's fun, but at the same time, it doesn't make any sense at all, does it? Look, I'm not a gay man. I'm not attracted to the boys, and I'm not repressing a goddamn thing. And while I'm personally not aroused by the hot boys of 300, I do recognize that there are people out there who find this movie legitimately scintillating and who love that about it. Makes perfect sense and is fine. But that doesn't mean that the Spartans are actually gay, right? Leonidas doesn't have romantic chemistry with any of his fellow soldiers. They hardly ever touch, and their only affection to one another is very brotherly. It's not gay. It's not actually gay to be buff, or to not wear a lot of clothes, or to hang out with the lads, or to stomp out the degenerates together. As a broader point here, yes, the movie is clearly invested in the male form, but does that investment actually feel sexual? Does the camera locate its heroes as figures to be ogled, touched, held, made love to? I don't think so. No, I think the movie loves the male body because it loves the motions it can perform, the sensuality of violence. And that's great, but that's about it for me. Disagree with that point if you like, but the point is, if you're really trying to contend that 300 wants to call out its own constant homophobia, its treatment of Xerxes, the one gay-coded character, these lesbians in the Persian Empire, the Athenian boy lovers...
Boy lovers?
The simple fact that the movie contains buff men is just a very silly, threadbare argument. The fact of the matter is that Spartans did do gay shit, like in real life. If the movie really wanted Leo to come off as a hypocrite, it should have had him kiss a man, kiss one of his own little dudes. Simple as that. This totally fake, insubstantial, not actually there, headcanoned gay shit does not a satire make. Argument 4. This is the one it usually comes back to. The film is being told by an unreliable narrator who thinks tossing babies off a cliff for their perceived defects is cool and good. That's a big clue that while the Spartans are the good guys in this story because it's being told by one of them, they're not actually good guys. They talk about throwing babies off of cliffs, and that's how we know the Spartans are supposed to be bad and that the film is implicitly roasting them. This is the best argument by far, the only one that makes any sense to me at all, and honestly, I think it blows. Look, it is thought-provoking that the first thing we learn about Sparta is that they kill little babies.
If it'd been small or puny, or sickly or misshapen, he would have been discarded.
But does the movie actually care at all about that? Is it reflected in any mistake the characters make? Any shitty thing they do? Any plot point at all? Well, no. Even looking at Leonidas, in his one interaction with a disabled man, he's meant to be understood as moral, upstanding, concerned only with his abilities as a soldier. As I said before, if the movie loved thinking about the badness of eugenics so much, why wouldn't the protagonist be a bad eugenicist dude who made us think about his politics? No, there's simply no way the movie works to comment on this moment. There's nothing there. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, can we look at one thing in a movie we think is morally wrong and just use that to call it satire? Can I call Birth of a Nation satire because it is a bunch of shit in it that I don't like? Well, no, because that's not how satire works. Satire has to satirize, work to deconstruct the bad ideas that it's working with. Like fucking Starship Troopers does to make this a callback thing. Zack Snyder made a comment about 300 that people who like to call it satire sometimes point to. I couldn't find the original interview, but this is from an article about it. He sought to place audiences in a tight spot by showing the Spartan savagery in blunt terms, as people who are prepared to throw newborn babies off a cliff if they're insufficiently healthy, and posing the question, these are the people you're supposed to go on this journey with? Those are your heroes? To be clear, I don't think that Snyder is pro-baby murder, that he truly believes that's a good thing to do. But I also don't think the movie cares all that much about it, about exploring how bad this action is and what it really says about the society that does it. Honestly, watching that first scene, it kind of just feels edgy to me, I don't know. Zack Snyder can ask if these are our heroes if he wants to, but when you make a movie dedicated to the evil of the deformed and inbred and degenerate, when you make a movie that has such a profound fear for the other and such a deep, obvious love for its strongmen, valiant, martyr protagonists, the answer is simple. Yes, the guys whose culture sometimes throws babies off of cliffs are our heroes. They are the heroes of the movie, in my opinion. Okay, let's talk about a tweet that I thought was just a bit strange. People seating Snyder to the right and claiming The Last Jedi is liberal gold is always funny, not only because the latter sucks, but because it was white supremacist in nature, quickly removing Finn from all relevance, LMAO. I feel like this is one of my least favorite tweets, not because it's the most offensive, but because it feels almost inhuman to me. I'm seating Zack Snyder to the right, like I'm giving him up to the conservatives, and it's a shame because if we on the left just banded together around 300, it would be good for our political team. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not seeding anything. I'm actually just expressing an opinion on a movie. And I have to ask, would you really want something different from me? Would you want me to bullshit you all day, every day, on the flimsy chance it'll bring a conservative over to my side? Kind of a weird fucking freak man you're describing. That's how I see it. Also, I don't like The Last Jedi because it's lib gold or whatever. I like it because I think it's a good movie. Okay, let's talk about what is maybe the most interesting tweet I saw on this subject. The events of the movie predate Nazism by several hundred years. What the fuck are you talking about? I say tweet, but shockingly enough, I should have said tweets. Multiple people expressed this idea to me in one way or another. Overdramatic retelling of 300 Spartan soldiers facing a Persian invasion. Nazi propaganda myth. Fucking brain rot. Nah, I think it was a bunch of naked dudes fighting until they die. I don't remember Hitler in it. Wow, I can't believe an actual historical battle that was at least in broad strokes fairly accurately represented in the movie was based on the Nazis. Sad. Nazi propaganda is when people from modern-day Greece repel an invading force of Persians. It's about ancient Greeks, dude. Legit, one of the most common replies I got to my take is that because the movie takes place in ancient Sparta and not Nazi Germany, I'm not making any sense. So I never expected this. I didn't ask for it, but it does intrigue me. That people legitimately feel this way, that it is intended as a kind of obvious, patronizing own, speaks to such an alien understanding of how interpretation works that it honestly made me want to make this video. So let's break it down. For one, 300 isn't a documentary, guys. It's not just recounting history, not even close. There are plenty of choices it makes that actively break with reality and that absolutely prop up the film's themes and expressed ideology. For some examples, the film chooses to make Ephialtes a hunchback. It chooses not to mention that the majority of Sparta's population were helots, a slave class, a fact that absolutely undermines the idea that Leonidas fights for freedom and Xerxes for submission and slavery. I could go on and on here, but come on, they're making a movie, not giving a social studies lesson. And the way it frames the events of this narrative, the choices it makes, the way it understands its characters can and does express politics. But maybe more importantly, why would a Nazi propaganda film literally have to be about Nazis? Why would Hitler need to be there? Nazis were obsessed with using pseudo-historical accounts to convey their ideology, and we can see it all the time. The 1945 Nazi film Kohlberg about the Napoleonic War is a film which condemns the greedy aristocracy and which suggests as a replacement a vague will of the people toward a strongman military culture. The glory of classical art was used to suggest the former greatness of the Aryan race before it was corrupted by Jews and black people.
The concept of beauty of Nordic man is incomprehensible to the Jew by nature, and will always remain so.
And just consider that the Nazis called themselves the Third Reich after two former times of supposed German supremacy. Consider the fact that Hitler loved Sparta and wanted to imitate it. Nazis, fascists, love history, love to believe they can rekindle historical ancient strength which has otherwise been lost. So when I say that 300 is straight up Nazi propaganda, I'm not saying it's about Hitler. That wouldn't make any sense. I'm saying, as I did at the beginning of this video, that the film expresses some pretty Nazi-ish ideas, that it embraces and understands the world according to a fascistic logic. And it does. I think I'm right. But, all of this is pretty irrelevant, I think. Saying that 300 can't express politics that are relevant to modern society because it's about ancient Greece doesn't make any sense on its face. And that's because what it's really saying is that movies can't and don't have subtext. They can't mean things or be about things that aren't literally what we see. And honestly, I can't help but feel like the movie deserves a bit better than this. It's a pretty fun, interesting movie, and it has a lot of stuff going on in it. And here, it's reduced to nothing. It doesn't matter that it was made in 2006, that it has an extraordinary amount of fantasy, that it makes creative, inventive choices constantly. It's about ancient Greece. Move on. These are supposed to be fans of 300, defending it against my bad, slanderous interpretation, and yet they make the movie lifeless sludge. Just a short one, let's talk about this tweet. It's a movie adapted from a comic book based on a Spartan story that is either fake or exaggerated. How the fuck? Bus! How the fuck is it Nazi propaganda? I saw this a few times. The claim that 300's status as adaptation is somehow relevant to the claims that I make. And there's only really one response. No, it isn't. My tweet wasn't making some bold claim about Zack Snyder's real-life politics or whatever. 300 exists as a movie. Adapted or not, it's real, and I said something about it. It's not really about Zack, right? What he personally added to the mix. Okay, let's read another tweet. Man, so for almost 20 years, you're admitting to have blindly liked Nazism. Gonna be one long-ass apology video. So can you guys ever just enjoy things, or do you always gotta do this kind of performative nonsense just so no one gets the wrong idea of your politics? So I like this tweet because it very explicitly involves the kind of political projection that I saw a lot in response to my tweet. Am I admitting to have blindly liked Nazism for 20 years? Well, not exactly, but yeah, kinda. I liked a movie, I still like a movie that I think has a lot of fascist themes in it. But, who cares? See, this guy is putting me in the role of judge and executioner because that's what they are. They would feel shame about enjoying a Nazi movie. They would be embarrassed to admit such a thing. And so me saying a movie expresses bad politics must be interpreted as a deep indictment of their character. But that's them saying that. I don't morally judge people for liking movies because I'm cool and normal. This kind of response looks like it's against purity culture. Why do all of these SJWs have to say everything is problematic? But in reality, it is the purity culture. I am a good person, so all the media I like must be beautiful and ethical. I like 300, so therefore it must be beautiful and ethical. And it's like, bro, just watch the movie, live your life. You don't have to make my tweet part of your weird identity crisis. Do what you want. I'm not your boss. I'm not your mom. No one's taken Zach from you. Zach's doing okay. Zach's making movies. Nobody has to worry about Zach. Zach's out there. He has a lot of fans. Don't worry about Zach anymore. I recorded that section around 3 full months ago now. For whatever reason, this video has taken a lifetime to fully produce. And honestly, I was gonna basically end there. I was gonna say that and then say goodbye and leave. But the more I think about it, the more I don't think that's the whole story. And when I watch it over now, I kind of feel like I'm lying to you. Recently, I rewatched the Lord of the Rings series, finally got around to the extended cut. And obviously, I was in awe the entire time. Every time I see them, they just get better and better for me. But I was deep in the throes of writing this video at the time, and so I thought to myself, what if someone called these movies Nazi shit? I very much don't think Lord of the Rings is fascistic, to be clear, for a lot of reasons that don't really matter here. But it does have a white Western culture that needs preserving, it does have evil, deformed enemies, it has enough to jog the thought, right? And if someone did tell me it was a Nazi movie, I think I'd have a really negative reaction. It's a series that means a lot to me at this point, and so if the person gave bad reasons, I'd be mad that they were smearing it unfairly, and if they gave good reasons, I'd be upset because I don't want it to be a Nazi movie. My Lord of the Rings is simple and good, and I don't want that to change. That's the thing, right? I can tell you it's okay to watch the Nazi movie and that I'm not your boss, etc., 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 and that's true, I agree with that. But don't get it twisted. On some level, I might be costing you something with my interpretation of 300. Costing something to the person who wants it to be satire, to the person who believes Zack Snyder fans are bullied and that I'm bullying them, to the person who thinks of it as a simple action film, totally empty of politics. And the truth is, I want it to cost you. I want to persuade you about this movie. No, I don't think you're a bad person for liking 300, but I believe thinking critically about it is important and worthwhile because I think media is important and worthwhile. And if you feel bad because I made your fave problematic, I'm okay with that, because it is. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. It was fun to make, but it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I kept on thinking of new things. If you liked it, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and give me money on Patreon if you want to. That'd be cool. And now, also, the video was edited by Mothcub Lily Ashton. And now it's time. What? What do you want? What do you want me to say? The video was edited by Mothcub, and now it's time for my Patreon question of the video. Cameron asks, what animal that is either illegal or socially unacceptable to eat would thou try a bit of if given the chance? Lion, gazelle, tiger, baboon, any kind of monkey, bats, any kind of insect or ant, a human being, some sort of a fusion of two animals like pork horse or panda zebra, like any sort of combination of the two. I'd eat like 3 animals and their little children, but I think that's actually about it. That's all the animals I would eat if I just try a bite of them. Okay, bye.